Hi, Assalamualaikum, and welcome again to my class. So today is a lecture on the new topic of process costing. So previously we had covered on job order costing, and today is on process costing. Okay, so here we're going to look at what are the similarities between job order and process costing. Okay, so both, the job order and process costing will assign the same items, which are material, labor, and overhead costs to products, and they provide a mechanism for computing unit product cost. Mechanism to compute unit product cost. This is the same between these two costing system, job order and process costing. Both systems use the same manufacturing accounts, including manufacturing overhead, raw materials, WIP, and finished goods. So the flow of cost through the manufacturing accounts is basically the same in both systems. The flow will be the same. So these are the similarities that you can find between these two process costing. I mean the two of the costing system, the job order and process costing. Okay. And now we look at the differences between the job order and process costing. So the job order, there are many different jobs or work during each period. We have many jobs, and with each job have unique production requirement or unique characteristic of the products that produce. Whereas when we are using the process costing system, it's on the product that is produced either on a continuous basis or for long periods. And all units of product are identical. So indifferent to job order costing, it has the unique characteristic of the product. Whereas the process costing, they have the continuous basis and the product is identical. For the job order costing, costs are accumulated by individual job. But for under process costing, it is accumulated by department. And the third one, the differences, the unit costs are computed by job on the job cost sheet. I hope you still remember the job cost sheets under the job order costing. Whereas for the process costing, the units costs are computed by department. Next, well, the concept check 1. Process costing system is used for products that are, it is similar and produced continuously. Processing departments. A processing department is any unit in an organization where materials, labor, or overhead are added to the production. Record the flow of materials, labor, and overhead through a process costing system. So what you can find here, the flow is almost same as what we had covered in job order costing system. It started with the direct materials, direct labor, overhead, and it will be WIP, finished good, and the cost of goods sold. And here is what we identify, under the job order costing system, trace and apply manufacturing costs to jobs. And then Under the process costing system, the costs are traced and applied to department in a process cost system. Okay, this is where the difference that we can find here. Okay, it is by department. If under the job order, it is by the job. Okay. So flow of raw material costs for departments A and B. Okay, we look at the T accounts and journal entries here. So more or less you found it is almost same. Okay, in terms of the flow, we have the raw materials here. Okay, that transfer to the department A and to department B. Okay. And this is the journal entry recorded here, debit WIP department A, debit WIP department B, and credit the raw materials. Next, in terms of the flow of the labor costs, from the direct labor here, we transfer or charge to the department A and as well as to the department B. Alright, this is the journal entries. Okay, debit WIP department A, debit WIP department B, and credit salaries and wages payable. Alright, and now we look at the flow of manufacturing overhead costs. Okay. So from the manufacturing overhead, okay, overhead applied to WIP to department A and to department B. So the journal entry is debit WIP department A, debit WIP department B, and credit manufacturing overhead. Transfer from WIP department A to WIP department B. Okay, this is from department A and is transferred to department B. Here, so we credit department A, okay, WIP department A, and debit to WIP department B. The transfer in costs from department A are added to the manufacturing costs in department B. So this is the journal entry, debit WIP department B, credit WIP department A. Okay, so once processing has been completed in a department, the units are transferred to the next department for further processing. So from the department B, okay, it's completed here. Okay, as a cost of good manufactured is transferred to the finished good accounts. So debit finished good, credit the WIP department B. And the last part here is transfer to the cost of goods sold. So we debit the cost of goods sold and credit the finished goods. So you can find that the flow is same as what we had done in job order costing. Okay, so process costing computation. So we have the few steps that we need to understand in calculating the product cost under process costing system. Okay, in process costing, each department needs to calculate two numbers for financial reporting purpose: the cost of its ending WIP inventory and the cost of its completed. Okay, so we need to give a concern on the WIP inventory and the completed units. Okay, that will transfer to the next stage of the production process. The key to deriving these two numbers is calculating unit cost within each department. So there are two methods that we're going to calculate that we use in calculating the process costing system computation. So we have the weighted average and FIFO. Okay, but we're just focusing on one of the method only here in this chapter, which is on the weighted average method. Alright, so characteristic of the weighted average method. This method makes no distinction between work done in the prior and current periods. It blends together units and costs from the prior and current period. Okay, we just make the total, put a total of the prior and the current periods. So the equivalent units of production for a department are the number of units transferred to the next department, okay, or finished goods, plus, okay, we add with the equivalent units in the department's ending WIP inventory. Okay, later in the following example, you will understand actually what is the equivalent units. Okay, each department needs to calculate a separate unit cost. Okay, separate unit cost for each type of manufacturing cost that it incurs. Okay, so to simplify things, direct labor and manufacturing overhead are often combined into one classification of product cost called conversion costs. Okay, so meaning that in the calculation of process costing system, we have one is on the direct material and the second one is the conversion cost. Okay, so conversion cost is comprising of the direct labor and manufacturing overhead. Equivalent units, okay, defined as the product of the number of partially completed units and the percentage completion of those units. Equivalent units need to be calculated because a department usually has some partially completed, okay, because of the sum of the partially completed units in its beginning and ending inventories. These partially completed units complicate the determination of a department's output for a given period and the unit cost that should be assigned to that output. Okay, so here we look at the example and the formula of the equivalent units. So the formula is number of partially completed units times with the percentage of completion. So equivalent units is the product of the number of partially completed units and percentage completion of this unit with respect to the processing department. So in an easy word, the equivalent unit is the number of complete units that could obtain from the materials and effort that went into the partially complete units. Okay, it provides you example here. The department A has 500 units, okay, in its ending WIP inventory that are 60% complete, okay. These 500 partially complete units are equivalent to 200 fully complete units. So we use this formula. So number of partially completed 500, okay, and times with the percentage of completion 60%, then we get 300. So the department's A ending WIP inventory would contain 300 equivalents of units for the period. So meaning that equivalent to the completed unit, okay, of the 500s partially completed is equivalent to 300 units of the completed units. Now we're going to check the understanding on the calculating of the equivalent units. So for the current period, June started 15,000 units and completed 10,000 units. Okay, this is number of completed. Meaning that we still have another 500 units that's still not complete. but it is equivalent to 30% complete. Okay, so how many units of production did Jones have for the period? So the first is, this is the confirm that it is completed, right? 10,000 units. This is the confirm one. How about the equivalent units here? So for the equivalent unit, it is, okay, this is the not completed and times with this percentage. So we will get 11,500, the equivalent units of the completed unit. Okay, 5,000 times 30% plus 10,000. Compute the equivalent units of production using weighted average method. Okay, so here the information about the production in a company in the assembly department. Okay, remember we said that it is done by department, okay, not by the job. Okay, so this is the assembly department for the month of June. So the WIP on 1st June, 300 units, percent completed for material 40%, conversion 20%, and units started into production in June 6,000, and units completed and transferred out 5,400. So this is the number of units completed. And the WIP units, okay, 900 with the percentage of completion 60% and 30% each for materials and conversion. Okay, so units completed and transferred out the department in June is 5,400 for both, okay, for materials and conversion. So now we're going to calculate the WIP, okay. So WIP at the end of the June, on the 3rd June, 900 units times 60%, so we get 540. And for the conversion, 270. So, okay, this is information. Okay, this information is actually given from the first slide that regarding the information on assembly department. Okay, if you remember from the previous slide. Okay, this percentage and as well as the unit. So then we calculate and we get 540 for materials and 270 for conversion. This is the equivalent units. Okay, so the equivalent units, the total equivalent units, okay, of the completed is 5940 for materials, and for conversion is 5670. So equivalent units of production always equal to units completed and transferred. So this is unit completed and transferred, right, class? Okay. Plus with the equivalent units remaining in WIP. So here is the equivalent units that in WIP that we calculated based on the percentage of completion. So then the equivalent units, this is the equivalent units. Okay. So compute the equivalent units of production. So this actually we already calculated and provided in details from previous slide, class, that we get 5940. But here it showed to you on the 5,100 is unit started and completed. So it add together with the 300 here, then we get 5,400, which is comprising from 300 here and 5,100. Okay. And then for the equivalent units, okay, it's come from here. Okay, so we get 540 and equivalent is 5940. So this is for the materials. Okay. And then for the conversion, so 5,400 is coming from here. Okay, 5,500 and 300. So we get 5,400. And for 270 is coming from here. And the equivalent units of production for conversion is 5670. Alright, next on compute the cost per equivalent unit using the weighted average method. So previous, we just calculate the equivalent unit, okay? And now we're going to compute the cost. Okay, so this is all the information, okay, the detailed cost for materials for the WIP, and then this is cost added during the production of June, and this is another information about the WIP inventory. Okay, the formula for computing the cost per equivalent unit is using the weighted average, okay? Cost of beginning WIP inventory add with the cost added during the period, divide with the equivalent units of production. Okay, and this information or on the equivalent units of production is already calculated in the step 1, okay, in the previous step, so that we can get the cost per equivalent unit using this formula. Cost of beginning WIP plus cost added during the period divided with the equivalent units of production. Alright, so this is the total cost. So this information is given from the question. Okay, then you just added them and provide the equivalent units here. Okay, and then so to get here the cost per equivalent units for materials 21. So how we get 21 is 1,24740. Okay, this is for the material class. Divide with the 5940 units, okay, the equivalent units, and we get 21,000, the cost per equivalent unit. And then for the conversion, we get $15 per equivalent unit. So how we get it? It's from the total cost for conversion, 85050 divided with the equivalent units of 5670, and we get $15 per unit. So the total cost per equivalent unit is 21 plus 15 is equal to 36. Assign cost to units using the weighted average method. So the ending WIP inventory equivalent units of material is 540, and for conversion to 70. So this is the cost, okay, that we calculated previously, okay, 15 and 21 and 15. And then we get the cost of ending WIP inventory 11340 and 4050 for conversion. And then we provide here for the units completed and transferred out. Unit transfer 5,400 for both. times with the cost per equivalent units, and then we get 113,400 for materials and of 81,000 for conversion, and then we get the total. Okay, and then prepare a cost reconciliation report using the weighted average method. So now we're going to make the reconciliation. So cost of the beginning WIP inventory and the cost added to production during the period 209,790. Okay. And the cost accounted, okay, this is the cost accounted for as follow. So cost of the ending WIP inventory, remember that we calculated from the previous slide, okay, 15,390, and the cost of unit transferred out, 194,400, and then the total cost accounted for, we show the same amount here. Okay, it will provide the same amount here, 209 and 209,790. So this is what we mean by the cost reconciliation. So we reconcile in terms of the cost that we had accounted for during the period, and as well as the cost accounted for. Okay, cost to be accounted for, okay, and cost accounted for. Okay, so we show the tally, okay, the same amount, cost to be accounted for and cost accounted for the period. Okay, so that's all for this chapter on process costing. Thank you and see you again on the next lecture. Assalamualaikum.